Hello, I'm Anthony. Arturia have just released V Collection 11. The V Collection is Arturia's flagship product and is a collection of awesome classic synths from yesteryear. Today I'm going to focus on just one of the synths in the collection because it's one of the new synthesizers. I've done many series if you check back over my YouTube content on the Arturia products. I'm a huge fan. The JUP-8000, however, has a particularly soft spot for me because the Roland JUP-8000, released in 1997, was the first ever appearance of the Roland Supersaw. This thing essentially went on to define an entire genre of electronic music. From this point onwards, the Supersaw became the de facto massive sound in synthesizer music. And in fact, it's still extremely popular as a preset in many modern synths as well. It was basically like a virtual emulation of 7 stacked sawtooth waves. And although this particular preset, the Supermass preset, has a few other bells and whistles, this is a pretty good demonstration of what you get with the Supersaw out of the box. Colossal digital emulation of an analog sound. So let's have a chat about this virtual analog concept that Roland invented or created in 1997. In 1997, Roland introduced the concept of the virtual analog synthesizer, which was a digital synth designed to recreate or replicate those glorious analog tones for which Roland had become so famous. The JUP-8000 was the digital spiritual successor of the Jupiter 8. And so the JUP-8000 was really important in many historical contexts, not just for introducing the Supersaw, but also for really merging the worlds of analog and digital together. When you look at this thing, it looks in every respect like one of the analog synthesizers that they'd been releasing over the past decade, and in fact the oscillator structure is very similar as well. The 8000V has 2 oscillators. At the moment in this Supermass preset we're only using one of them. Can you see this mix knob here? It's turned all the way to the left. That means we're only hearing the Supersaw coming out of oscillator 1. If I turn this mix knob all the way towards oscillator 2 and change the waveform shape to a pulse, here's what we've got in oscillator 2 so far. Now I want to mix those 2 oscillators together. Those oscillators, once mixed, are sent into the filter bank. Now today I'm going to give you a very quick overview of most of the components in the synth, and we'll have a look at some of the advanced stuff as well. So just a very quick whistle-stop tour of the filter unit. It's currently set to low pass filter mode, but we've also got band and high pass. Let's have a bit of a play with this for a while. So that's me adjusting the filter cutoff. Now let's have a bit of a play with the envelope and filter options. If I increase the low frequency oscillator control, there's a global LFO, here it is down here, and at the moment its rate is set very low. So if I introduce plenty of that, what's going to happen is that we're going to get a very slow undulating sweep on top of everything else that's going on. And there it is, glorious. We also have an envelope control where we can assign this attack decay sustain release envelope to the filter, which is going to produce a little filter sweep on every note that I press. And finally, let's dial in some resonance. So this is going to introduce a peak or accentuation of frequencies around whatever frequency is specified by the cutoff control. Still got that filter sweep going in the background as well off the low frequency oscillator. So there's all sorts of stuff manipulating the filter here. Speaking of all sorts of stuff, not all of it is visible from the front end because we have a set of advanced functions. This is stuff that Arturia have introduced on top of the original emulation. Everything we've talked about so far has been in the context of the emulation of the JUP-8000. But if we press the advanced button, now the lower half of the interface is a whole bunch of stuff that Arturia brought to the party on top of the original emulation. A nice preset that I've found to demonstrate some of these functions is Astral Transit. Let's load that. Amongst many other options, much of the time that you'll spend in the advanced screen is spent on these three freely assignable modulation sources. If I drop this little drop down, you can see the various types of modulation sources that you can pick: envelopes, functions, randomizers, a modulator and a sequencer. In this particular preset, we have 3 different functions set, and as I select each of them, you can see that they have very different and quite complex shapes. The whole deal with functions is that they're kind of like envelopes in that they have a beginning and an end, but you can manipulate them by clicking in the interface and drawing very complex shapes. I'm just going to right-click this node to make it go away again. Now I'm going to press a single note on the keyboard. We'll have a listen to Astral Transit and then we'll see what each of these functions is doing. You can see this strobing line. That's telling you the current function point. Let's have a look at this one. So that very stuttering staggered filter effect is coming from the function. This thing is generating a modulation amount that's being sent somewhere else in the synthesizer. If we hover over this little graph, you can see what those destinations are. Function 3 is being assigned to the filter cutoff. If I disable this function, that effect goes away. Turn it back on. Let's have a look over at function 2. What's that doing? Several different things, so you can map each of these modulation parameters to multiple different destinations in the synth. Function 2 is modulating the fine pitch of oscillator 2. Don't forget, this is a mix of 2 different oscillators, but we're only modulating the pitch of oscillator 2. So that's going to create a tonal stress between these 2 oscillators. It's also modulating the pulse width depth. Pulse width is it's like a tonal effect. It's going to change the shape of the sound, and also the filter cutoff. Yes, you can have multiple sources mapped to the same destination. That's totally legal. So if I press that single key again, let's get rid of the complex function 3. And as that green strobing line passes through the function, you can hear all of those modulation changes happening. Let's disable everything from function 2 with the master switch. And now the sound has become much more settled, much more stable, and less interesting, frankly. Over on function 1, we have a simpler shape. Kind of looks like half a sine wave, but it's been truncated at the end. What's this doing? This modulation is going to oscillator 1, control 1. Well, if we have a look up at oscillator 1, control 1 is the detune slider. Here it is. Where else is it going? It's going to filter resonance. Let's have a look at that. There it is. A tiny little bit of modulation on the resonance, and also this master tone control, which is over in the tone bank. And in fact, when I hover over the control, can you see that tiny little green dot in the background? That's telling you the current modulation effect that's being had on the control. So let's try and catch what that sounds like. I'll press the note again, and then I'll disable all of those modulations. And again, the sound became even more stable, more static. In addition to the 3 assignable modulation sources, we also have an arpeggiator and sequencer. I'm going to load up the Ascension Melody preset, and this time I'm going to jump over to the sequencer section. Again, I'm going to press one single note on the keyboard. So in this case, the 8000V is acting as a sequencer. We've input these stepped notes. As I scroll up and down, you can see quite a complex arrangement of offsets that have been specified. Even though they're input onto the keyboard and you might be tempted to think they're absolute fixed pitches, they're not. They're pitch offsets, because every time I play a different key on the keyboard, every one of these sequence notes is offset according to the pitch of the note that I've just played. This preset's also a lovely demonstration of the effects bank. If we jump over to the effects page, you can see delay, reverb, multi-filter, multiband, and then reflected in the interface. So every time we choose one of the many effects types that are available, so Arturia have significantly increased the range of options available to you. Let's pick a chorus. For the fourth effect, now you can see that this knob in the interface is the master output control for that effect. This is a really nice demonstration of the multi-filter as well, because this is what's generating that almost flange-like sweep. It's coming from the multi-filter. If I turn it off, that sweep goes away. I love this synthesizer. These sounds are absolutely my bread and butter. I'm going to spend a lot of time with it. For about 20 years, Roland just could do no wrong in my eyes. They carried over that rich vein of form from their glorious analog synths of the late 70s and 80s into the 90s with their virtual analog synthesizers, and the JUP-8000 emulated here with the JUP-8000V is a glorious example of Roland just hitting it straight out of the park. This thing is absolutely fantastic. And that'll do us for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit like if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more content like this. Thanks very much for watching.